How do we start this thing, I wonder? Can everybody hear me?
Loud and clear.
How are you? Is it just us?
Kimberly Park, you're on mute. There you go.
Oh, hi.
We can't see you, Kim.
I look pretty awful right now because I've been dealing with my kids all morning. So
Okay. Can you hear me now? No.
Yes, we can hear you. Yep. Now we can't. I think you put yourself on mute. Now you're good.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. Jean and David.
Hi,
All
Laura.
right.
Hey,
Well,
Laura.
let's get started. So my favorite topics are, listings and sellers. And, I'll tell you that it took me probably about the first 2 years of my career to really kind of hone in on working with sellers. I was really primarily a buyer's agent when I first started. And then I segued into, really heavily working with sellers and becoming a listing agent. And in the last year or so, everything was shifted a little bit. We had to kind of put a different hat on as far as how we did business. And now it's kind of exciting because things are going to kind of shift again. But let's talk about who's done listings and worked with sellers. I know Maury has. Anybody else?
I have.
Okay, Kimberly?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. All right. And how did you find your sellers?
It was through referral. People I know refer me.
That's awesome. Yeah, the referrals are really the best. And did out of those listings and those referrals, did you get other referrals?
Slowly, I'm getting some more referrals now. So yeah, I'm starting to get more referrals.
I remember when you were, when you got your license, yeah, you came in with some referrals too.
Yes, I did. I'm surprised you remember.
I do remember. Yes. Yeah. Okay, well, it talks about, what's really important about working with really with buyers or sellers is really listening to your clients' wants and your clients' needs. And, once you really, listen to what their wants and needs are, is then to, make a plan of action from what they need and to, to not always, tell a client what they should do, but to be a good agent is to be a good listener. And I found that to be really true. Can never shove real estate down someone's throat. It doesn't really work. It doesn't work well. You don't garner good results that way. And so, how are some of the ways that you can go out and find sellers, and especially in this kind of a market? Has anybody been, trying to go out and get listings in the last year, or? And if so, have you done that?
I would say for me, it's been kind of marketing stunts. At the beginning of the pandemic, we couldn't do door knocking, but I went around and did a flyer with toilet paper. Everybody wanted toilet paper, so I left that on people's doorsteps. And I got one out of that. And I thought, being we can't door knock, maybe we should do some events. So like at the park, I'm going to do a doggy day at the park, bring your dog and maybe win a gift card to Petco or, one of those places, and give out doggy treats. And maybe there are some other stunts that we can do. And then I think also, the newsletters that you do, and I do a monthly market analysis, and I had gotten a listing meeting out of that someone had seen. So
yeah, those are all really great things to do. And I know for myself, I'm ever since I started out in real estate, I knew when I started out that I needed to. I'm not really a salesperson. I never wanted to be a salesperson. And, if somebody had told me when I got my real estate license that this business was all about lead generating, I think I would have, said, forget it. I need to find another plan B. This is not what I wanted to be signed up for. So I knew that I had to find an organic way to do my business. And And I did, and my business, I grew really organically, and I'm very big on, I'm being of service, community events. I built a very lucrative and very good, successful career here, out of door knocking. And that's how I started, getting listings, was really from door knocking. And I'll tell you, it was not easy, and it took a long time. And that's why, they talk about like farmers, farming and, building, growing, putting seeds in and watching, the seeds, come to life. It took me about 6 to 8 months before I got my first listing, but I was always very, very consistent. And in this last year, with, not being able to door knock, I had to kind of shift my efforts and still be present in everyone's minds. And I really started then honing in on my database, my referrals, and, helping out in the community. And from there, I got a lot of business, but I have a lot of recognition in the community. But it wasn't always like that in the beginning. It was, I was not like a rocket to stardom when I got here, and I'm really grateful for that, because I had to work very, very hard in the beginning. I think sometimes those are good things. At least it was for me. But, let's talk about, there's a lot of different ways to go about, like, if you get a client and they want to possibly list their house, there's a lot of different ways to go about setting up appointments. There are people that go on pre-listing appointments. There are people that just go on listing appointments. But for myself, I just go on a listing appointment. But, the most important thing is to pre-qualify your clients. We talk about being, I'm in a coaching program. We talk about being the favorite or the fool. And, being the favorite or the fool is that, you have to find out if your seller is interviewing just you or interviewing more than one agent. And that is so important. And by doing that, you need to ask a lot of questions. And that is going through a checklist in the very beginning when you're talking to a client and setting up that listing, appointment. And, you want to call and ask that person, that first of all, you want to call and say that you're calling to set up a time to meet with them, to discuss putting, their house on the market, and that you would like to take 10 minutes of their time on the phone, if that would be okay with them. And if they say yes, then let them know that you've got, like a series of questions that you'd like to ask them, so that you can hone in on the, being the favorite or the fool. And the first question, one of the first questions I always ask is, if you wouldn't mind, would you let me know if you're going to be interviewing other agents? And if they say yes, then I would ask them if they've met with any of the other agents yet. And if they say, yes, I have, then I would ask, I'm curious as to know why you haven't listed with one of them yet. Because I don't want to go in and, give away all of my knowledge if I ask all these questions and I find out that, they're just doing their due diligence and they've actually already decided in their mind that they're going to be listing with someone else. So that I want to ask all those questions. And then I also ask them what they would like to accomplish at our meeting. Some people might say, well, I'm just trying to figure out, if this is a good time to sell, or I'm thinking about, selling down the road, or I don't have really any plans right now. I just hear that the market is really great. Or, you might find out that, yes, I have immediate plans to sell. So by asking all those questions, you can find out, what their intentions are. And then I dig a little bit deeper, by asking, where they plan to move, because let's say they plan to move out of state, then you can tell them that, you can set them up with a referral partner in whatever state that they're moving to, so that you can help to have a seamless transition. And also you want to ask, or I always ask, how soon they want to be moving, what their timeline is, and also what's really important to them about the move. Some people might say, well, I'm setting up a retirement plan, or, we want to, especially during this last year in the pandemic, a lot of people have decided that they need bigger space, their lifestyle has changed, they want, a home office, they want a large backyard, their wants and their needs have shifted. So those are kind of questions that are really important. And another question that's really great is, if we were to sell your house within the next 30 days, would that pose a problem for you? Or would that be okay with you? And then that leads to the question of discussing if they need a lease back, or if they need, a longer escrow and things like that. And that's not happening so much in this market, but also, another question is, what would happen if the house didn't sell? So, those are the kind of questions that I like to ask on a call. But primarily, really, I want to find out if they're interviewing any other agents. And if so, who those agents are, so that I can be prepared and I can prep for that. But a lot of times, sellers will it'll just be one call, they'll just be calling me, hopefully, not everyone else. So anyway, those are things that I always like to ask first and foremost, is getting those kind of questions out of the way. And, there are some agents that will even go the extra mile and talk about that commission question. Because there are a lot of agents that, want to charge 6%, and they have that conversation up front. I don't necessarily do that, but, there are agents that do that. You just have to find out, figure out what's comfortable for you. So anyway, those are, some of the kind of questions that I ask on a pre-listing call. And then I set up the appointment to go and meet with them in person. So do any of you have any kind of experience with setting up pre-listing calls, or do you just set up a call and then, go and talk to them in person? I'd love to hear some feedback on that. Kimberly, Alex?
Yeah, I
What
tried
was the
to
question?
do the pre-call before the listing appointment. I find that it's really helpful, so I know what to prepare for the real meeting.
Mm-hmm. Good. And so that's worked out well for you?
Yes, it has. But I need to kind of hone in on the specific questions, list of questions that I would ask, because right now I feel that it's not complete, like a important questions that I'm asking. So if I can get like a list of the pre-call questions, that would be great.
Sure. How about you, Alex?
In terms of what I ask,
Yeah, do you do a pre-qual question call with your clients?
Yeah, I think, when I first started, I would just, give the kitchen sink, I would be like comps and then here's how we can market it and da da da, and then found that like I wouldn't get it, and I'm like, wait a minute, I just told them everything, so I think, yeah, now I feel like I've gotten a little more smart, I guess, about not being the fool and, just saying like, yeah, are you talking to other folks, and, what is it that you hope to get out of this? What's most important to you? What are you basing if they, because, the big questions are like, how much do you think I can get? What do you think it'll sell for? And I think it's important to say like, when we're absolutely ready to go and we've looked at what you might need to do to your house, and that's also a question, how much are you willing to kind of put into it to get to potentially get what you can get out of it, if it's your mother's home and you've moved her to a different location and there's a lot of deferred maintenance, are you willing to paint it? Are you, because that really will that will dictate pricing. And, before you can run those comps, we need to really see where you're at when you're ready. And we have to see what the market is saying at that time too. So, I do feel like it's important to ask them, where they're at pricing wise, because sometimes you can get a sense of like, are they way off? They're like, oh, I can get $2 million, and you're like, you're like maybe 1, 2, 1, 3, because then you have to decide like, do I want to get into a situation with somebody where you're locked in with them and then they've got this unrealistic expectation, so I think those pre-qual questions are really important. Like, how serious are they? Are they going to do this right now? Are they understanding what's going on in the market, or are they just being, fed by, auntie so-and-so that they can make a mint right now,
Yeah, especially in this market, everybody is starting to really, get extremely greedy, and,
Yes.
you really have to, talk to them about their expectations and,
Yeah.
yeah, not every house is going to sell the way, the neighbor's house sold.
Right.
And
That's exactly.
I know for myself, in the last just few months, I'm starting to really take that leap of faith and, listen to what my coach is saying and turn down some listings, because, there are sellers that have very realistic expectations and also are asking for, a commission reduction, and I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah.
And so, I'm, having to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's power in that too. Certainly I think there are some sellers out there who are like, well, you want this badly, you want my listing. And it's like, yeah, sure. But I also have a lot of other things going on. Like, I don't necessarily need that headache too. So, yeah.
I don't need it. And I don't need it. Yeah. You have to come from that place of, abundance, really. And know that there's more business out there and not be a chaser.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I've learned that the hard way.
I think, yeah. Unfortunately, we all do it the hard way, right?
Yeah. You're told that, and then it's not till you do it. You're like, ooh, yeah, that one hurt. That's smart.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so I think it is really important to get those, sometimes those are tough questions to get out of the way. And, they, I think, take a little bit of getting comfortable with and used to. And, it doesn't always, they're not feel good questions in the beginning. But I think it's important to have those conversations with, whether it's a seller or a buyer, to make sure that, you know, everybody's on the same page and everybody knows what kind of their roles are. And if it's not the right fit, then it's not the right fit. And there's going to be the right agent for that particular client. And then we're going to find the right fit for our next client as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've walked away from a couple of listings and then I thought, oh, you know, that was kind of a bummer, but then, you know, something else comes up and it turned out to be, you know, probably something that, you know, I could sink my teeth into that was going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, taking that leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, there was one listing that I was up for that we, the person I was speaking with was one of like 2 or 3 decision makers. And I remember one of the questions was, well, one of the decision makers had a bad experience with an agent where they were locked into the contract for a really long time. Would you be open to like a 3-month contract or something like that? And I said, well, you know, I mean, I'm certainly willing to talk about it. I said, but, you know, typically it takes you that long to kind of ramp up sometimes. Like, you know, 3 months goes by in a minute. Like for me, I kind of prefer at least 6 months. Like I didn't think I was being overly like aggressive with that ask. And I got like, basically like flat out, like, yeah, no, that was the kicker. I'm like, really? Like I said, look, it'll probably sell in less than 6 months,
Right.
but if I'm going to put all this energy and effort and I'm working with you, like I'm going to market it, I'm going to do all these things. Like I kind of need a little bit more from you, you know? And yeah, they went with another agent who was amenable to it. And then I realized later that it probably wasn't that big of a deal. Like I maybe could have just said, sure. And then let's like revisit, and it probably would have been re-upped. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I just had that exact same experience last week happen. And, you know, she wanted a 2-month contract. And I was like, no, I don't do a 2-month contract. I said, my contracts are, you know, at least 6 months.
Right.
And then she called me, you know, she called me back the other day to thank me for all my time. And she said, you know, that she had such a great connection with me, and she went on and on. And she said she found someone that, you know, would do, you know, the 2-month contract. And I said, that I think that's fantastic. I said, you know, and good luck. And, you know, if she ever needed anything in the future. And
Mm-hmm.
but, yeah, I'm not gonna do that, because you never know after 2 months or 3 months. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, something's probably most likely gonna sell, but yeah, why not just stick to your standards?
And I also was like, you know, the other thing I'll say, and this is what I said to him, and I believe this, and I have done this. If you're not happy in 2-3 months, or, you know, things are just going completely sideways, I don't have any problem canceling.
Right.
Like, I'm not gonna like, you know, strong arm you. Like, if you're really truly unhappy and things are not going the way you expected, then yeah, like that I will guarantee.
Right.
Like, I do not want to be in a deal with somebody who's like super unhappy.
Yeah.
And if it's less than the 6-month time that we agreed upon, okay, that's fine.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, there's certain things that I hope that, you know, you give a little time for a listing, but, you know, beyond that, like, okay, let's just cancel it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. If someone's not happy with my services, I would definitely
Yeah, it's not worth
try
it.
to find out the reason why. And,
Right.
you know, if it's not something that's, we can work out, then I'm gonna definitely cancel the contract and
Right.
move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you touched on something too, and I think it's so important. And one of the things I'll also ask in, you know, the pre-listing call when I'm setting up the appointment is to make sure that all the decision makers, you know, will be at the meeting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if someone says, oh, you know, well, my husband's going to be out of town, but I can be there for the first meeting. No. When is your husband going to be, back in town? And we'll set up the meeting for, when we can all meet together.
Mhm.
So.
That is so important.
Yes.
Yeah. Because like even on the buy side, like suddenly like, Uncle Louie, who's been in like Cleveland, is like looking at the inspection reports and they're like, no, that's terrible. And the house is going to fall apart. You're like, wait, who's this other person? Who is that?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's really important.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's funny. That meeting that with the 2 or 3 month contract, all the decision makers weren't in the room, and that was difficult.
Oh, yeah,
That was hard.
yeah. Yeah, that's very important. And, that's why it's really important too when someone calls me is I'll try to look up, the property profile, the title and everything to find out, who all the players are. And when I have that call, if, I'm talking to Jane and Jane says, well, I can meet you. And then I'll say, well, what about, your husband or, yeah. So.
Is that something that you do like if you get a listing call, you what's your sort of initial deep dive before you even maybe talk to them? Like maybe, I'm sorry, maybe you already talked about this, but.
Well, I definitely, yeah, I do a lot of digging, I'll check the property profile. Sometimes, I will even, call like Brandon and pull a prelim and, find out, see what's going on the prelim. Yeah.
Right.
Because I'm, hopefully I always try to have that positive mindset that I'm going to go in, it doesn't always happen as we know,
Yeah.
but try to have that positive mindset that, I'm going in for, and to get that listing contract signed. But I certainly want to make sure that I have all the, all the information so that when I'm talking to them, I sound, as knowledgeable as I can. Of course, you don't, sometimes you don't always have all the information, but that's why I try to ask as many questions as possible. And I do a lot of trust sales too. And, when I'm talking to someone, I always make sure that they can send me, a copy of the trust so that I can take a look at the trust. And if I can't decipher it, I'll send it to my escrow officer, or I'll send it to Brandon and just make sure that, the trust is in order so that, there's nothing that's out of line, so that when we do go to sell the property, that there's no, there's no glitches in it that, so I try to do all of that upfront as well. And most people, for the most part, they don't mind sending all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you already talk about what you come to a meeting with?
No, I haven't talked about that, but when I, when I go to my listing appointments, I take my listing presentation, I take, comps, and, it might sound strange, but I usually take a gift, and a little, like I call it, hostess gift,
Yeah.
I take a little gift, and if they have a pet, I'll take a pet. I try to figure out like what's kind of important to them in the family, and I'll try to take a gift for whatever works for their family.
Smart.
So I usually do that. I remember once I went on a listing appointment and they told me, "Oh, you had me at the chocolates." I was like, I'll never forget that. I always remembered that was one of my first listing appointments. I thought, okay. But
It's a good idea.
yeah. So my mom kind of taught me that was, always take something with you.
Don't come empty-handed.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know, for the last couple of years, I haven't really had to pull out the listing presentation, but I do come armed with it. But, nobody's really asked to see it. And I've left it behind a few times, but who knows if they look at it, I don't know.
Is
But,
is it bound or is it like?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
bound. Mhm.
I gotcha.
And, when on my Zoom calls, I'll send a link to it.
Oh,
Yeah, sometimes I'll send the link when I send out the Zoom, contact information. I'll
mhm,
send the link to the listing presentation as
mhm.
well. Same thing with the buyer's presentation.
Right, right. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but,
that's a good idea,
we do
especially
go,
now.
we do go through the comps, but, gosh, in this market, it's like,
Yeah.
the comps
Yeah.
are like out the window,
Oh, it's crazy. Yes.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had two, well, representing buyers and having to waive the appraisal contingency and it didn't appraise.
Yeah.
And I set them up for it. I said, it could happen. The
Mhm.
drag is if it had just been 3 weeks later, they would have appraised because all the prices went
Right.
cuckoo. So, yeah, that's when you know your buyer really wants it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I just had a property I've got on the market in West Adams, which I put on for $1,499,000, which was high. And I went into escrow at $1,650,000. And I mean, it's a record breaking sale for West Adams and it appraised at $1,650,000. I sent out the counter, with no appraisal contingency and
mhm.
I was blown away,
Wow,
Yeah, it's crazy.
that's nuts.
Yeah, insane.
Do you, when you're talking to your listing appointments and you see that they definitely it needs to be painted, it needs to be staged, and it's not a situation where they're like, I don't want to do anything. Let's just price it low and I'm good to go. But if they're like, no, I want to get the maximum, how do you talk about the staging and painting and any fixes, price payment questions with them?
Mhm. Well, it all depends, number one, on who the seller is. If it's a seller that can afford it up front, I will talk about, I'll give them the two choices that, they can either do the work themselves and pay for it up front, or that they can use our concierge service and then pay for it on the back end. And then I'll let them know that, the benefits of staging and, freshening up the house, how important it is that, and it'll garner them, a higher price. And if it's somebody that can't really, dive deep into their pockets and, they don't have the money, I'll talk to them about, using the concierge service or, just doing maybe some very, very minor things. Just to, put a little Band-Aid on it, so to speak,
Right.
Yeah.
And have you used the concierge service?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's an application system, right? That it's sort of like a loan. In some
Yes.
sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. But they're not charged at the end.
Until the end, right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a max amount or is there a minimum amount that?
There was a minimum, there was a max amount, and I think now, I think they've changed it. The guidelines have changed a bit, and I don't know what that is. So I'd have to revisit that. So I'm not sure, Alex.
Right.
But I know that they've increased it considerably, and I know that the guidelines for approval has loosened up a bit too over the course of the last year.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But they're great to work with. I tend to be, coming from, being a producer, I tend to micromanage. So, they will come in and coordinate everything. but I oversaw most everything. But that's just who I am. I like to do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying, meaning they'll have the painters and is that what you mean? Like,
Yeah, like they'll come in, you sort of like, you can give them the keys to this, the super or the lockbox, and they'll come in, you can go and do your walkthrough and your punch list with them, and then, leave everything to them. But I like to, be hands-on and, go through and
yeah. I mean,
coordinate everything. I think you
Yeah.
probably like that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I see.
Like I'm
Yeah.
putting, I'm just getting ready. I got a call from a client this morning, and, she wants to list her house, and she said to me, oh, well, in this market, we just have to do photos. And I said, no. I said that, that's not true. I said, because she said, well, why don't we just do photos and put it on the market? Or why don't you just use the photos from when I had it, put it on the market when we had it on the market before? I said, no. I said, it doesn't work that way. I said,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what market we're in. I said, you've hired me because you know what I'm going to do for you. And I said, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And I need this, I need this time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
she's like, okay. So, but people have that fantasy thinking that they're going to get, I don't know, everything's just magically happen for very little effort.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen that way. Sometimes it does, but it does, you have to put the effort in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
I had
hire
a
somebody
house
else.
that I put on the market, gosh, in November. I had talked to the seller. We'd been talking for 2 years. She was actually one of my neighbors, and she called me and said she decided to list with her best friend because she felt really guilty about not using him. And he was an agent that didn't really know the neighborhood. And he told her what she wanted to hear, that she could get, he could list the house for, 150,000 over what I had told her. And I just sold a house down the street for, 200,000 less. So she listed it with her best friend, and it sat for like, a month, I don't know, a month and a half. So she called me and she said, I'm canceling the listing and I want to list with you. And I told her, I said, well, I'm happy to do that, but here are my conditions, because I really want you to sell your house. And I said, I can't do it, based on what you're looking for, but I can sell it for you if you follow my direction. And she kind of kicked and screamed for a minute, and then I said, do you trust me? And she said, yes. And I said, well, then it has to be done this way. So sure enough, we did a big price reduction, and, we got the house sold. But, it's like, it's that fantasy price and that fantasy thinking. And, it's somebody can tell somebody what they want to hear. And it's just, in this market, it'll just sit, it's not going to sell.
Right. That's right.
And that's happened to me 3 times this year. I've been the second date.
Yeah, no, I've definitely experienced that too recently. Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, I think if you have the track record, and you're also, I'm not interested in working with somebody who doesn't want to work with me, like, I don't need to keep convincing you. I mean, maybe if you've never worked with me before, certainly, yes, I want to show you what I can do for you. But like, to keep compromising myself, like, to fit your narrative of what you think you can get for something, like.
Yeah, that's why I love, thinking, that mindset of now that I'm thinking about being the favorite or the fool.
Yeah.
It's kind of freeing.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is. That's true. Yeah, I mean, and it's funny when you really let yourself hear it and hear what they're saying. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like, yeah, I'm able to let go a lot quicker.
Mhm. Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you're just fishing. You're just okay. That's good. Call me,
Right.
happy to help, but go to your favorite.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If it's not the right fit, it's, that's
Yeah.
okay by me.
Yeah, exactly. Because it frees you up to do other and more deals, I would imagine.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is there any kind of when they say no, when you have people who are like, well, I'm interviewing this, so and so and so and so too, and we'll let you know. Is there anything that you sort of leave them with? How do you follow up? Like,
Yeah,
reaching out?
well, I asked them, if they say that they're, going to be interviewing someone else, I ask them what their time frame is.
Mhm.
And yeah, if they don't mind, if, I follow up with them and, when are they meeting with the other agents? And, I'd like to follow up with you and may I give you a call? If they say, well, I'm meeting with Jane on Wednesday, when will you be making a decision? And then, if they say, well, my husband and I are going to decide by Thursday, well, then I'd like to give you a call, Thursday night or Friday. How does that sound? Is that okay with you?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And do you lay out what your marketing plan will be with them, or do you just kind of give them a sort of once we get into, once we decide that we're going to work together, I will really lay out for you, what.
Well, I'm trying to get better at that
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be giving away the keys to the kingdom.
Right,
until
right.
I get the
Yeah.
listing signed.
Yeah.
And I learned that kind of the hard way last week because I had someone, that wanted me to list their house. And we were getting ready to sign a listing agreement. And then she came back, her and her husband came back to me and said, oh, you know what, we want to work with somebody that's going to give us a reduced commission. And I was like, I can't do that. That's not who I am. And I had, prior to that, I'd already given some of my marketing ideas to them. And I will never do that again, ever. Because I know they're going to go and use my marketing ideas. Not that they couldn't have come into one of my properties and seen it, but
Right.
I
Right.
was so ticked off at myself for doing that. I kicked myself because I knew better.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Was it something you said verbally, or was it something that you presented, like as part of your listing presentation?
yeah, it was something that I had presented because they knew that I did this for someone else. And then she said, oh, can I see, what you did? And I said, sure. And I sent her a couple of things, but, normally I don't like to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the hardest thing to, say no to. Like, you want to be helpful too. And you're also trying to get the deal, Yeah.
But I'm trying to, I look at people that have gone before me now that are doing that, and they're doing it successfully and
Mhm.
it's working. So, I'm finding that I need to do my time, and my marketing ideas are valuable.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Alex and Laura, how do you respond to a potential agreement before it's signed? How do you respond to a seller who says, I really need a lower commission?
Well, David, that's a good question. I will say that, I'm sorry, but this is my commission, and I might not be the right agent for you. There are other agents that will, work at that commission, but that's not who I am, and that's not what I work for.
I read one company said that their response would be, well, I'm not going to cut corners on marketing your house, so I don't expect to cut corners on my commission.
Mm-hmm. And
And
also,
some,
you can also say too, if I start negotiating my commission, do you think, how do you feel I would negotiate for you? Or
Right.
something along those lines,
Right.
Yep.
Well, what if you're considered like a percentage of volume? Like I have had an investor over the weekend who I know very well, who has a lot of properties he wants to buy,
Mhm.
but he was asking for a reduced commission.
Well, I will tell you, Jenny, that I have an investor who I work with all the time and treats me very, very well. I give him a little lower commission. I will always, I shouldn't say always do that, but I've made an exception with him because I do a volume of work with him. But I am looking at all of my other residential clients in this other fashion.
This one was a little shocking to me because I thought he might ask me for, I don't know what an appropriate reduction would be in that case, but he asked me for a 50% reduction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I'm talking about just a little, not
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
25%, or I didn't even know it. It was take it or leave it, that kind of thing with him.
Mhm.
But
Well,
I don't
maybe
have the
in-
experience that you guys have, so
maybe in that situation, you can say like, well, okay, look, I'm willing to entertain a business relationship and deal with you. Are we talking about multiple deals here? Are we talking about, what are we discussing here? Because
Yeah, is it a
the work is
volume
the
of work
same.
that you're doing? Or?
yeah,
there's a large volume, but I don't know if I'm guaranteed that. Just because he says that doesn't mean
no,
it's truly going to happen.
No.
that needs to be in writing.
Yeah, especially with an investor,
Yeah.
because you can be the flavor of the month.
Exactly.
Yeah, and next month, yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Flavor of the month.
Yeah.
You could also be like, okay, look, why don't we decide on, X commission and see how this goes and see if it's a good fit,
Very
and
good
then,
too.
maybe if there is truly more in the pipeline and we can work out an agreement, and then we can figure out, what the best approach is. And also, is he's selling or she's selling?
He's
Is that
doing both.
good?
He's doing a 1031 right now.
Yeah.
And he's bought about 3 properties in the past 3
With
months.
you?
No.
Have you done business with him or her?
Yes, I'm very close to. I used to manage all his businesses, and we've known each other for about 10 years, but I've never done any real estate transactions with him. Like I managed all of his properties, those kind of things. So I was kind of seen as, he doesn't see me as a real estate agent because I'm a new real estate agent.
Mhm.
I actually got into real estate by knowing him. That's how I actually got into it. So,
I see.
So you have institutional knowledge, which is good, which is in your favor. And I would say that that's something you can leverage and be like, look, I know you and I know your properties and I know how you work. I know your needs and your quirks or whatever. Like I would be good to work with. 50%. How about this? And see if you can say, let's try it. Let's try it for one transaction and then see how we do. But yeah, that should be in writing. There definitely shouldn't be a verbal like, oh yeah, there's more coming down the line.
Yeah, and you don't want to give
Maybe.
him, yeah,
No, that's never a good
and
idea.
everything.
flavor of the month is my favorite. It can very easily turn into that.
Investors are very like whatever way the wind's blowing, Yeah, they're different from residential. And in some ways, they can be really, really easy, because they're like, I'm all cash, I'm quick close, that side of things could be really fast. But selling, sometimes, they've invested a lot of money, it's taken their project longer than they thought, You
A
know,
lot of pressure.
a lot of pressure. They're getting pissed off. You know, they have a number in their head. And as you know, it gets closer, that number, you know, maybe needs to get higher, and then they're going to come after you for your commission, but they do need you. So, you know, you don't necessarily have to be part of their bottom line. You know, you're running your own business. If it doesn't make
I
sense,
think
then don't do
I
it.
was surprised he wanted a discount on the buyer side.
Oh,
Really?
Both.
I have an investor I've been working with for, gosh, almost 3 years. And we've done a lot of transactions together, and on sell side and buy side, they do a lot of work. They've treated me very, very well. That's the one I've given a little bit of a discount on this, on my listing side, because they do treat me very well. But I do know that I could be the flavor of the month anytime, you know? But I work very hard for them, and but they've never asked me for any type of reduction on, you know, the buy side.
yeah, that's a little surprising. I don't even know exactly how you do that either. Like, you
They
can,
wanted a mitzvah.
what's that?
They wanted a mitzvah, something for free.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly, you would have more information about this, I think, Laura, but like, you can certainly give them money towards their closing, a certain amount towards their closing costs from your commission, but you can't like write them a check, right? I mean, you're not supposed to do that, right?
No.
That's all like, that's kind of behind, you know, off the books kind of stuff that, you know.
What are
if
they
people found
asking
out,
for?
He just said, I'll tell you this up front. If you want me to use you, it's 50% off all buys and sells.
I don't even know how you do that.
And I was like, buys. So I went back and forth with him on that one. And I said, I haven't heard of that. And he said that that's who I use. That's how I work it out. That's what I do. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to say.
Just
I don't
say,
know.
okay, well, you know, look, I understand like the sell side. If you use me as your agent and I've helped you buy something and you've got, you know, we've got a couple deals in place, but the buy side, you know, that gets into territory where, you know, I don't really want to lose my license. You know, we could maybe talk about something at the
Yeah, and you know,
closing.
who knows if that's even true? If that's a
Exactly.
reality, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good point too. Like, is he being honest?
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
just ask a
you-
lot of
Yeah,
questions.
I would really think hard and long on that before you, get
Yeah.
into business with him on that, on the buy side.
Yeah. You know, you don't want to just be like, you know, I don't want to leverage our relationship and our friendship and whatever, you know, history we have, you know, but this is how I have to work.
Energy and effort to go find properties for these guys, you know, so you could
It's a
put
lot.
an effort into looking for other, you know, raw buyers that are, you know, that you can get, you know, a 2.5% or 3% commission off of.
Yeah. Yeah. Investors.
Yeah, I kind of
always love
lost
that
my
idea.
desire after that conversation. I haven't.
That doesn't sit well with me just listening to that. So.
Yeah. Me
I
neither.
haven't responded to any of his texts since then right now. Well, I mean, I'm not ignoring him, but I just kind of put on hold, trying to wrap my mind around that. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Laura,
before we wrap
do you-
this up, does anybody have any like questions or anything?
I was just curious, Laura, if if you have a seller that says, well, what if you represent both the buyer and seller?
Yeah.
You ever talk about that with regards to commission?
Yes, that I get that quite a bit. Yeah. And you know, a few times, Alex, if it's been like because you know these elderly sellers kind of tug at my heartstrings. You know, I have given a little bit of a price, you know, a commission reduction, but generally I'll say, you know, it takes just as much work representing both sides. And yeah, you know, I very rarely will represent both sides anyway. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't like, it gets messy and I don't like to do that.
Yeah, yeah, right,
But, you know, I pretty much, I try to stick to my guns.
right.
Laura, I have a question. Earlier, you mentioned something about not using previous photographs. And I've been trying to get listings from expireds
Uh-huh.
where the listings on the where the photographs on the MLS look fabulous. So number one, are those photographs fair game? And number two, why wouldn't you use them?
Well, David, you can't use someone else's photographs. So those are the property of that previous listing agent.
Okay.
So you would have to take you would have to take new photos.
Okay.
And you can take, you'll take even better photos.
Well, I would use professional and virtual staging where it's called for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. So the first one is, if we're working with a seller that wants to do any type of improvements on their home, do you have any experience with either like Keller Mortgage or another lender offering bridge loan to that seller for them to improve their house prior to listing it, and then I guess taking any profit or equity that they make from the home to pay off that debt? And then my second question has to do with if you work with any sellers that are looking strictly at foreclosed properties.
Okay. Yeah, we kind of touched on that a few minutes ago, but we have a concierge program through Forward Living that will allow a seller to do upgrades to their property where they wouldn't have to put any money, lay out any money up front, and it all comes out at the close of escrow out of their proceeds. So they can do any upgrades that they need to. Let's say they want to freshen up the house, they could do some light, remodeling, freshening up the kitchen, bathrooms, landscaping, all of those kind of things. They just have to do a soft, they do have to fill out an application, do a soft credit check.
Okay, cool. Got it. And then the second part about foreclosed properties, I had a couple people ask me whether, or I guess like what the process is regarding foreclosed properties, especially with, the moratorium being lifted and then being put back into place. A lot of people are wondering if a lot of foreclosed properties are going to come out to market in the next few months here. Do you have any experience with working with those types of properties, or like the steps to take for sellers that want to purchase a home like that?
When I first started in the business, which was in, the end of the recession, I did a lot of short sales and a few foreclosures, but primarily that's how my business started, was short sales. And back then, the short sales, the process was a year to sometimes a year and a half to sell a property. They're much, they take 3 months to 2 months now, but literally it was a very, very long and painful process. So that's really the only experience that I have. I don't have a lot of experience with, I have experience with pre-foreclosures. I have some sellers that, had their properties were in pre-foreclosure. And when I found out they were going into pre-foreclosure, I went to them to let them know that, we could get their home sold so that they could still, they would have some equity that we could get, get them if we got, their house sold quickly. But as far as a foreclosure, I don't have a lot of experience. But you could talk to your title rep about foreclosures. Who do you use for title?
So we're currently not really working with anyone. I think just Van, that's the one that KW recommended. So yeah, so I think anytime that we do have questions, we
Yeah, you should reach out to Ven. He's great and he could help you with that.
I think
Okay,
it's
cool.
worth asking the office too, because like, you know, Tracy and Lorna started their business, a lot of foreclosures and REO, you know, properties, and Steve and Steve
Yeah,
Senegram, they've
Steve,
done a lot of that. And that would be a good class actually, because some people are saying that that may be coming back because of forbearance issues. And I don't know if it's going to come back with a vengeance like it did before, because I think a lot more people have a lot more equity in their homes
they
because
were
of
saying that
changes.
we're not gonna see that like we did, but yeah.
No,
Yeah, Steve and
yeah.
Chamber, they were entrenched in, I forgot about that. They were
Yeah.
entrenched in the foreclosure business and they're very cool guys.
Yeah, they have a lot of info
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Good point. Okay, anybody else?
I have a quick question. How do you do the Zoom meeting for the listing presentation?
Oh, you know what, Kimberly, I do that just really the same way we're, having this meeting now. I will, I'll send out I'll send the Zoom, not the Zoom, I'll send out the listing presentation link prior to the meeting, which most people don't really ever look at, but I will send that out. I also I'll send out the comps, a link to the comps. And that's really what we kind of dive into, or the comps on our call. And, go through like a timeline of getting the house on the market. And then, I wrap it up with, sending them the listing contract to sign.
Okay, but how do you look at the houses so do you have them just carry the phone around to show you the house?
To do the walkthrough.
Yeah.
I've done, I've done them on, live on Facebook. And
FaceTime?
FaceTime, thank you. But through this pandemic, most of the houses I've listed, I've known. I've been in them prior to listing the properties. And a lot of listings that I've gone on this year, I've actually gone in person too. But the ones that I've just done on Zoom, yeah, we've done them, we've walked through the property together, on the camera. And they've shown the house, room by room.
Okay. And the clients were comfortable with that, or do they want you to come in actually physically to take a look at the house?
For the most part, most of the clients have invited me into their home. I have one seller that, because they just had a baby, and we were going to put the house on the market. I think it was last March. I met with them in February, and we were going to put the house on the market in March. And then, it was like, radio silence for a while. And then we, had a conversation, and they said, we don't want to do anything until everybody's fully vaccinated. And now they've kind of come out of, out of hiding, and we're having that conversation, and we're going to, get the house listed, and we're going to put them into a new house. But, there have been many conversations in the last month about, they want to know if my whole team has been vaccinated, what are all the steps? And I don't blame them. There are some people that are, more overly cautious than others. And then other people have, had me in their house, and I've, with even small children, and they're just like, oh, just use the hand sanitizer and you're okay. You know, it just all depends on who it is.
I see, I see. The reason I'm asking is because I'm licensed in Las Vegas also, so I'm constantly going back and forth every other week. So sometimes if I cannot make it to, physically make it to the house, and I wasn't sure if the Zoom call meeting for the listing presentation is appropriate or if has been successful. So
I've got about 6 of my friends who are top producers on the West Side that have only done Zoom presentations this whole year, that have never stepped into a house. And a few of them chose not to, go to the home. They only wanted to do Zoom calls, and it's worked out really well.
okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's just how they set up their business.
Okay.
I think more people are comfortable with it now too.
Yeah.
FaceTiming through,
And I think we're going to see more, as, even as everything opens up, I think we're just going to see more and more of that.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody good? Okay.
Thank you,
Well, we're
Laura.
going to talk about open houses on Thursday because everything's starting to open up. So we'll talk about open houses, and that should be fun. So maybe I'll see you all then. And have a great day.
Thank you,
Bye.
Laura. See you,
Thanks.
Laura.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.